Hello, Capricorn. My name is Kristen Simone Hansen, and welcome to SeaGoat Secrets. Okay, so Capricorn, I know that many of you have been talking about my audio. My microphone has not been working for whatever reason. I have to get it checked out and figure out what's going on with it. But this is me just talking directly into the camera, and my voice just isn't very loud. I will try to, well, not even try, I will actively work on the audio when I translate it over to the computer and try to increase it the best that I can, and try to, play with like noise reduction and stuff like that so that the audio is good. But till then, it may be a bit of an issue until I get my microphone fixed. On a more positive note, the sun is coming out to meet us, which is so great. It looks beautiful. I don't know if I have lipstick on my teeth, but yeah. So in this video, I have to make it kind of quick because I'm heading out, but I wanted to discuss the Gemini new moon and the post Gemini new moon energy that is going on, and the ego death that has been taking place. I have gone through it. I am feeling it. I am in the middle of it. I was thinking that everything that I had built was in my divine alignment, and in a way it was, but it was in a way that was more based on an ego identity that I had created in order to survive. And that is the thing that a lot of Capricorns are going through in terms of this last leg of Pluto refinement, is when we are in a stage of change, right? Change is difficult. Change is not easy. And in life, when you're getting hit with, how do you say, like, in order for any transformation to take place, pain has to happen. If you're thinking about childbirth, right? We are human beings. We are not octopuses. Octopuses are one of my favorite creatures in the world, but when a mother octopus gives birth, she dies. It's a life for a life experience. For human beings, we don't have to physically pass, but and hopefully, a person can survive it, but it puts the body through so much that a piece of you does die. Your ego dies as the woman that you thought you were prior to being a mother. Your life dies, your identity, I don't want to say disappears, but it does die. You become reborn now that this life has entered yours. And so much of your energy goes into that child, right? Sometimes your bones sometimes break, your skin stretches, sometimes it tears. Whole parts of you that you developed, like a placenta, in order to wrap this baby around something that keeps it safe, has now left you. And in a way, the child itself is almost like an organ living inside of you. It's a part of you. It grew inside of you, and it's gone. And that's why postpartum is such a thing, right? You have this moment in your life where something that you developed through change and transformation has now brought you to a point where it no longer is inside of you, and then you have to cope with that. That is what it's like when you are going through any kind of change with yourself. We are giving birth to ourselves, and that's what change does. That's what transformation does. You're giving birth to the new you. And it happens often, especially for you because of the kind of sign that you are. Transformation is your constant, as the narrative of climbing up a mountain is constantly having to change, constantly having to grow, develop muscle in order to reach high heights. You cannot have the same your lung capacity increases the higher you go. That's why people who are like raised around the Grand Canyon, for example, there are certain things that they can sustain in terms of their breath. And sometimes, if you look at older tribes and if you study them, their rib cages would be wider because they adapted to being able to breathe in a certain amount of air at a certain altitude. So this is what happens to us, right? Our bodies adapt and they change and they expand to the way our lives ask us to function. And I think if we saw ourselves and we understood ourselves as the humans that we are and the sensitivity that creates us, that makes us, then we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves as we are changing and growing and evolving in our lives. I think that we say to ourselves, I want something to be quick, I want it to be fast. If I want this, why does all of this have to happen in order to get us there? Well, because of the dreams and the aspirations that you have for yourself are things that you have to become. If they were already who you are, you wouldn't aspire to them. And just like anyone who has ever been through childbirth or has, which I have not, but anyone who has gone through the process understands the entire experience of that 10-month dedication, much less the rest of your life, right? As this being is now in it. And that's what change and transformation does. It evolves us, it grows us, it expands us, and our bodies adapt. So with that being said, the death that many of you guys are going through, in the comments you guys have told me about certain experiences that you had, some very traumatic experiences that you have gone through pertaining to loss and sickness. And one of the biggest things that has been going on for you is, again, that change, that growth, that refinement. Sometimes sickness comes into our lives in order to discipline us more when it comes to our health or our choices or what we will tolerate. The thing about you, Capricorn, is you can put up with so much, too much. You can sit and endure to such an extreme point that you will sacrifice, the sacrificial goat will sacrifice yourself in order to honor someone else, in order to be the responsible one, the one who has your head on straight and can endure, and you make yourself the authority. But a lot of the time you make yourself the kind of authority that is the sacrificial goat. Have you ever heard the term scapegoat, which many of us have, especially if you study narcissism and all of the above, and being an empath and that entire process? The thing about that is the scapegoat is basically a biblical term, and it talks about all of the people I think these were during like Hebrew times, but do not quote me on that. But I do know it was during that time. And what people would do is they would take all of their sins and they put it onto a goat, and they would then slay the goat, kill the goat. And that is where the term scapegoat comes from. And it is saying that if they can wash away their sins and put it on this goat, or not even wash it away, right? Because if they washed away their sins, they wouldn't blame it on the goat. But if they can place all their sins into this goat and then slay the goat, then that would mean that they are no longer sin. The sin has been cleaned from them because it is the goat, right? And then you see all of the different ways where goats have been perceived as evil post that time, okay? The thing about you is you can sometimes naturally make yourself a scapegoat just because of your own nature. This responsibility, the sacrifice, the docile nature that you have, and your inability to give up makes you the perfect scapegoat for many situations. And what the universe is doing for you, although it might seem like loss and trauma, is it asked you to choose yourself first. A lot of the relationships that you lost were because you did not choose yourself first. You chose the other person before you chose you. You would sacrifice yourself, even if it meant the demise of your own spirit. And there have been many of you guys who, for example, are now going through some kind of reconciliation when it comes to some relationships. And a lot of that had to do with the growth that you had to do within yourself. What were you giving to yourself? Were you working hard on your spirit, or were you working hard on the outside? Where was your ego? Was your ego trying to survive based on someone else's perception of what survival was supposed to look like, or were you surviving for you? And one second, hold on. I'm running out of time. But yeah, so I'll save the Gemini new moon, post Gemini new moon stuff for another time. But back to this entire experience with the ego death. There will be a loss that's going to take place at the end of this month. And from some of you, it might be financial. It doesn't have to necessarily be a big loss. It could be a small one. It could be project-based. And for others of you, it'll be a much larger loss, like a larger sum of money or a job or something along those lines. And it will feel devastating. It will feel difficult. But the thing that you need to understand is, remember, you have gone through all of this at this point, not because you were made to suffer, but because you're being redirected to a life that's easier, to a life that's more balanced for you, to a life that is more authentic to who it is that you really are, not the person that you created in order to stand up in the world, or to combat the world, to combat your bullies, to be successful based on what it is that people said success was supposed to look like for you. The universe is granting you the ability to be your truest self and live a life of more ease and grace, where hard work becomes hard work on the character, where discipline becomes self-discipline, where being the person of status can mean that you represent the way that people should live in terms of living a life that is more practical in soul and spirit, being able to generate the kind of wealth for yourself that is vast, but it doesn't mean that it sacrifices your time and your energy and your soul at the same time, right? The fallen angel is finally learning how to stand up again. And it feels difficult, but you've been tested to learn how to let go. Do not be afraid to let go. You're being redirected, okay? Pay attention to the things that have come into fruition that are beautiful. Pay attention to the blessings that you have had, the freedom that you now have, even if it's just within yourself. That is where you want to create from. Don't think about working. Think about creating. Think about expanding. And I will expand on this a little bit more later in the Gemini New Moon video, but I think I mentioned it before, where it was like how to navigate your personality traits to the new, to the new identity that exists within you now, where discipline becomes spiritual discipline, power becomes personal power, right? Whereas before you were exuding power on the outside, now your power comes from within. Your materials are not an extension of your identity. Your identity creates your materials. You're moving within and going without. Capricorn represents the crown and the root. Before, you were in a space where you were coming from the root and trying to go from down, going from below to above, and trying to push things out that way, pushing yourself and putting up with things and putting up with people and draining yourself. Deep breathing. Remember your personal power. It starts within yourself. Go from the crown into the root, not the other way around. You get all these amazing downloads and all this amazing guidance. And the crown and the root combination means that you can practicalize that which is unable to be understood through the lens of the earth. And that's a part of what you do. You come and you use your purpose in order to give to the earth something that they can understand, right? When you think about the energy of spiritual stores or crystal stores or spiritual books. Those things are practicalizing that which cannot be practical. That's the Capricorn lens, right? Using your purpose to create some tangible, real results of guidance or wisdom or something that people can hold in their hands. You're doing that with yourself first, focused on your creative energy more than your ability to work. Work through your creativity. Expand on the things that exist inside of you and bring them out. Yes, the ego is dying, and a part of great loss, you learn more from failure than you do from success. And great losses come with great rewards, okay? Not just risks, but loss comes with great reward. It is removed from you because there's a better way to do it. There's a better way to go about it, and it's a blessing, okay? So this ego death is not easy. I think I'm in the shadow. Yeah, okay. The ego death is not easy. For me, I've been through many, so I welcome them always. I go through tears and I go through all of the above, and then I start to adapt, and I'm like, okay, all right, I accept it. I'm so happy to feel more lighthearted and to feel more open and available, and realize that my power is not compromised by the light that moves through me. And the intersection of the yin and the yang for the fallen angel is something that is your, when you reach your highest elevation, is when you are the merger between duality. The devil is knowledge, right? Where knowledge and spirit meet, where yin meets yang, where the two sides can come together to find wisdom, right? So I'll expand on this more later, but I just wanted to give this video to you guys in terms of this process of the ego death, of the new you that is being created, to prepare you for July and all of the changes that are happening. July is a beginning for you in so many ways. That Capricorn full moon is coming in as a big beginning because it's in your first house and it's deep, okay? I believe it's an oak moon and it's deep, okay? And it's happening during a time when Leo is moving all throughout your 8th house in Cancer season. So be prepared because your emotions are going to be running heavy and they're going to be running high. But again, it's the beginning of your transformation, of the changed you. You're going to be looking back on this time period around your birthday month, which is December and January, and a lot of the things that began or are beginning at this time, you'll be able to look back on them at that time and see how it all worked together for you, and that the universe is working for you and not against you. Okay, so I love you. Ciao.